Since it looks like I'm the only one on board today, then I'm going to take some time for you to do this because there's a lot of pieces. I rushed through it yesterday with the state's subject matter experts and that team, and I want to slow down a little bit so you can absorb all this. And so I'm going to show you several things, and I'm going to try to get through it without dizzying you with changing screens, but I'm going to show you the user acceptance test guide. Okay. When we say UAT, we're talking about user acceptance test. I'm going to talk through that a little bit. I'm going to talk through the schedule and what we're planning on for release one. What is a release one and what is a cycle? We'll talk about that a little bit. And then the future of how these will work going forward. I'm going to talk about how you would report an issue, a bug, or an enhancement. And then I'm going to talk about getting into the actual artifacts, getting into the reporting notebook, and getting into the UAT platform altogether. So I will take this slow, and I really, if there's any question whatsoever, don't hesitate to ask. Either put them in chat or just raise your hand, and hopefully I'll see it and stop, or someone will see it, and we can answer those questions right then. All right, so the first thing is we'll give you access to a lot of stuff here in our teams. We'll give you access to the user acceptance test guide. This is the entire guide here. We're going to this is broken down into week by week cycles. So I'm just showing you here briefly this because the detail is going to be in the cycle one guide, which we're going, each of these topics are available in UAT, or I should say feature sets are available in UAT. And we're going to group these by week, all the way down through this customer's applications and that. Okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this guide. Everything is in this guide. I'm going to take you to this one, which is our schedule first. Okay. And then I'm going to tell you exactly how we're going to try to work together on this. Okay. All right. So release one is deployed to our SIU UAT environment. And the entire release schedule is broken up into these cycles. Each cycle will be 1 week. Okay. And we're soliciting feedback from you for each of these topics. Now, is all the functionality that we're talking about here in our first release available out there? Sure it is, but we really want to focus on just the topics that we talk about in this week. So we're teeing up all the topics, the 4 topics there for this week, and then we'll want you to give us feedback on those 4 topics by next Tuesday at noon. Okay. Then we'll review all that. We'll try to keep up as a business analyst team. We'll try to keep up with commenting back and giving you feedback back into our OneNote that we're going to collaborate with, and we'll show you that. And then throughout the time, so we don't really want you to hold anything. So if you got in there today or tomorrow and you said, wow, I found an issue, I found a bug, I found an enhancement opportunity, whatever it is, and you wanted to report that, don't hold that till Tuesday morning or anything like that. Just go ahead and put it in that, because we can have some conversation in OneNote about that. Okay. And then Tuesday at noon, we want that all complete if we can, so the BA team can triage the rest of whatever's in there and prepare for the Wednesday and then the Thursday of this meeting, so that we can talk about those things that were found, and then we can kick off that next one. Okay. We will also have, other discovery session work too going on in this meeting. So this will probably be longer today, actually, of an introduction to UAT, because we all got to get our understanding of how we want to do this. Okay, so this particular week, we're going to talk about access to the environment. How do we get into that? How do we get these tools and work with them so that we can collaborate? We're going to talk about entity management, the list view. Okay, I know some of you use the entity management portion of IWDS and some of you do not, But please, if there's someone that uses it regularly in your LWIA, make sure we know, we get them involved or know who they are, because if it's not anyone on this call or whatever, then we want to make sure we get the proper attention and feedback we get from someone that uses it. But we're going to work with entity management list view, entity details view, which is going into an entity, entities are providers and employers, going into the entity information and looking at it. And then we're also going to go and add an entity. Those three things we're going to show you. And it might not be a whole lot, but we don't want to, hit you with a fire hose. We want to keep this into something, because we're only giving it to you for like a week, right? So we want to make sure that you have plenty of time to hit these topics. And so these feature sets. So that's why we're just kind of feeding it out in small bites. Okay. All right.
Christy, you have your hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just have a quick question about the entity management. I just want to make sure that we do have the right people on the call, or, access to the site. So when you're saying entity management, are you saying entering like a new office location, or is it something else?
Not yet. That's actually going to come a little later, office
so
locations and that. We're talking about a provider. You know how you add providers, like providers or employers. You add those, and you're kind of like the owning, in a sense, they call it kind of the owning LWIA when you add those in.
okay, got you.
And then you add,
sure.
right, and then you add address, location, and then you add, right, and then you go in and you add contacts, and then you manage all the services they have, right, all those check boxes and stuff. And
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I think I got you now. Just thank you so
okay,
much.
all right. So yeah, but no, that's a topic that's going to be coming later, your LWIA offices and all that. But this is specific to what I would call providers and employers. Okay. Okay. So very good question. So let's get into this. There's two reasons. You say, well, okay, first of all, let me explain. For some of you who've been on projects before, some of you haven't, in developing systems or are moving systems from an old technology to a newer technology. And those have probably been more traditional waterfall life cycles. And what I mean by that is, there's this big design requirements, discovery and design phase. And then they go away and develop that whole system, and you haven't heard from them for 6 months or a year. And then finally at the end, they say, hey, we want you to come in and look at the system and start user acceptance testing it. And you go through that process for a million cycles, because all of a sudden you're seeing something that maybe you didn't think was going to be that way, right? So this is a different approach. And we're in what we call an agile. If you remember back in our kickoff and all that, we're in an agile framework for our project lifecycle. And so agile really means, and we're actually a Scrum methodology, but what that really means is we develop in sprints, which I've been talking about, and then we will want to demonstrate and collaborate and get feedback from what we develop. So the idea of that is, so from this point on, you will have a UAT environment that you will be able to go in and work in and give feedback. Now we're going to have a structured way to do that by releasing a portion of the system and then giving you cycles to specifically feedback to us. But when this release is complete and we've gotten through all of it with all the cycles, we hope to have release 2 ready right behind it. So from this point on, and what is the big purpose of that is so we can interact and get feedback from you and make sure we're building the system that you expect and that you want and that you will use in the future. Okay, so that's just the way this methodology will work from here on out. And so we're not saying we're going to release into the UAT environment on every 2-week sprint, because that doesn't make sense, because we want to make sure we build up enough of a feature set so that you're not working with partial stuff. You'll see that sometimes. You'll see some stuff in here that I'll say, yeah, it's not really available yet. even though you'll see a way to get to it, we're not asking. That's why you want to focus on what we're each cycle. We're not asking you to go in and look at that yet because it's just not complete. We have to have, we have to have those pieces there from a testing perspective on a week-to-week basis, because we test every week as we go along internally, but they're really more finite pieces. They're smaller pieces, and they don't really add up necessarily to a full feature of doing something, okay, in the system. So that's why we don't release the UAT on every sprint. We're going to release the UAT on a controlled methodology, and this is how we're going to release to you. Okay. So that's the reason we want to get you in there early and often. And the second reason we're starting right now is, which we're, quite a ways out from our endpoint, is because we want to get this process of UAT into a practice that makes perfect sense, and anybody that's involved doesn't have to say, well, how do I report, or what am I doing, or how do I get test data, or what do you recommend to do? We want to make sure this gets to be a regular repetitive process that you can pop in and out, and you don't spend a whole lot of time, but you do spend enough time that you're understanding how we're developing the system. Okay, so those are the two major reasons for jumping in this right now. Okay. All right, so release one, and every release, what is our expectations and what is our homework, so to speak, homework areas for this week? So this week, we will focus on these key areas listed here. We're going to focus on making sure you can get into the environment. When I say get into the environment, I mean, there's a UAT environment we have out here, which is accessible in your browser. You'll get into that environment, be able to understand what a menu is, what the sort of, I want to say, widgets on a page are, the navigation parts of that. And then you'll also be able to get to these points: entity list view, add entity, and entity details view. You'll be able to get to those, and you'll know what those are. Okay. So that's that access to environment and understanding where to go. Also, access to environment is, can you get to these documents, right? And can you get to the OneNote notebook that we're going to collaborate in, that I'm going to show you? Okay. So those are all about accessing the environment, and then the actual UAT on those three sections. Okay. Our expectations are, like I said, you'll end your submission of feedback by the 17th at noon, which is next Tuesday. Okay. That'll allow us to do the triage and all that, like I said, and we'll be able to talk here in this meeting on Thursday, and we'll be able to talk on Wednesday with the state folks, and you, LWS, at the Thursday meeting, and we'll be able to talk through your concerns, your likes and dislikes, and all those kinds of things that you found in that environment when you tested. It's very important. I cannot emphasize enough that you actually go in and try it. It really is. I know it sounds, well, that should be simple. I should be able to find time. Just set aside some time on your calendar or something, just so you can go in, even if it's only an hour, or if it's only a half an hour, just so you can understand and talk to our discussion, and you can have feedback. You may not have any feedback. That's okay. You may not have any issues, bugs, enhancements to report in the tool, in the OneNote tool. But if you could just get in there enough that when we get to that next Thursday and we say, okay, what did you find? What did everybody find? We have good discussion. Okay. All right. So this right here is the link to our UAT environment. Okay. It'll be right here in this document here that you're going to get access to. And then we'll put the links. I'll also put the links in this chat when we get closer here. In fact, if Taylor, you could copy this link and this UAT notebook link, and this page, this cycle one link, into that chat just for now. That'll help us see if who's having problems getting to that stuff. I don't think anybody should. Okay. And then we'll get to this, and I'll do a demo on what we're going to do this week in a second. Let's talk about reporting issues. Okay. So we want you to document any issues, bugs, or enhancements. We'll tell you in a minute what those three things are and how to differentiate between those three, but we'll help you with that. Don't worry about that. And we will want you to do this in this UAT issues reporting notebook. I'm gonna click on. I got it open here. I'm going to show you in a second on this. So when you log in your entries, document this information as you're completing your AT work. Like we said, it's just harder to do it or it's going to force you to go back and try to recreate the issue if you wait 2 or 3 days. If you jump in there, go over to the other side. I like to have a couple windows open if you've got room for it on your screen. Put the notebook up in one side and put the application browser up in another side. Or 2 tabs, because you can use UAT. You can use the notebook in a browser format too, whether you're using an application or a browser. Either way, and if you haven't got familiar with this is going to be an opportunity for you to get a little bit familiar with OneNote. But I like to do that because then I can just copy and paste and put stuff over into that notebook. The first page of the notebooks, the first page of so our notebook is divided into sections, and then in each section there will be pages, and the pages will be specific to the feature sets that we're working on this week. So this is what that looks like. Release 1, cycle 1, 2, 3, 4. This is actually opened in an application. Some of you may open it in a browser. That's okay. It works the same. Your application may look a little different in Windows. Don't worry about that. Mine's black. Yours might be white. But here on the first page, as we're talking about right here, in the first page notebook is labeled example issue reporting. Okay. This will give you an idea. I just made up this. It's actually, I didn't make it up. I kind of think when I first jumped into it, I think we kind of need this. But what I basically said, and this would kind of be considered an enhancement, but it's a small enough thing and it's an important enough thing that we'd probably schedule it right in. But I said on an empty page with the filter at the left, when I select an LWIA from the dropdown, I do not see the LWIA number next to the name. I think, that may or may not be something that's wanted. I think it's probably going to be wanted. And then I actually tell why I think this would be nice to have. And then the number also. And then that is this. And then I gave it a screen print of that. So of that section of the screen. Okay. Some people, I don't know if it's easy for you. I think some of you on Windows have a snippet tool or something like that. In a Mac environment, it's really easy. There's keystrokes to do that, but hopefully you'll have something you could, if you need to. Now you do not have to. You can just explain how, this would probably explain it enough for us. Okay. So you do not have to do that. Okay. And then here you notice I put in red that on 9.4 here, I responded to this. So you know that, hey, I saw this and here's what we're going to do about it. And in this particular one, I said, hey, this issue has been opened with the following story number. So we will potentially open an issue as an issue, or it will be a story, or it'll be a bug in our tracking system, which is DevOps. You do not have access to that. So it's important that we kind of link together or have a tracking back between our DevOps where we're going to take care of this and this. So if you see this, you'll know that we're addressing this. We may have some conversation here with you on this. That's okay. We may say, yeah, that might be a change request because it might be an enhancement that we don't know that we can get into the scope of the release one. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. Each of these pages, so the 3 we have teed up this week, manage entities list, which is the list view, add an entity and entity details view. If you have anything in those areas while you're working in those areas, it would be nice to put those here in this. Now, the advantage of using this notebook is if we just captured, like if you just emailed us, everybody emailed us all their issues, that could be done, right? But it's possible that your peers do not see that same issue, okay? And so we get bombarded with multiple issues. Second is we have to pull those emails and put them somewhere because we need to track all those. Third is I may get an email because you might decide to send it to me, and Taylor or Olivia or Lynette don't get that email. So there's a lot of problems when we get to using email. The major thing is collaboration. You get to see other folks work and what they respond, because you may say, you may come over and say, somebody already found that, so I don't have to enter that here because someone already found it. Or you could say, and even in here is, yeah, I agree. I think that's a good idea. You've seen that before, where people post to Apple. They may say, hey, you know what? My iPhone should connect to satellite. And somebody else says, I think that's also a good idea. That was, so that's okay. You can actually say, yeah, I found the same problem, and put that there too. Or you don't have to do anything if you see that is already logged. Okay. But that's an advantage of collaborating in the same notebook, everybody together, as opposed to firing off a bunch of emails. Okay. All right. So I talked about that. Be concise and detailed, as detailed as you can possibly be. We talk about reproduction steps. We would love for you to put the reproduction steps in there. It might be 3 steps. You might need to put data in there. Like I used this data and I got an error. It's like, why did I get an error using this data? This is common data that we would use. Meaning, I put a hyphen in a name and it didn't allow me to. I didn't allow it. It gave me an error. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know that that's true, but I'm just saying that's an example. Okay. So be very concise on what you did, and include data if you can. Okay. If multiple issues arise in one area, so if I'm in add entity, for example, and I have 2 different problems with 2 different fields, okay, please log those as separate issues, not one issue, so that we can make sure we track each issue separately. Okay. And then the next part is, if you have any issues accessing the OneNote notebook, this document, the UAT, please contact any of us, okay, including Sarah. This is the BA team. And we obviously our emails are on this, but we'll add them to this anyway. Our emails are on this meeting, but we'll definitely add them here too. Okay. Let's dig deeper into expectations. Test thoroughly. Okay. We test, and we are going to be, I can tell you right now, we're going to be, beefing up or increasing our tests if you find bugs. We do not want you to find bugs. Okay. We're not asking you to find, your expectations aren't to find bugs. But we test a little bit different. We don't test exactly as you would use it. Okay. And therefore, we want to make sure it has like usability. Okay. It has the way you would use it, that we probably may not use it. We get too close to the system and we use it a certain way, and everybody does. The developer uses it a certain way when they test, the testers and the BAs use it a certain way when they test. But it's not always the way you use it as a user. Okay. So be sure to pay attention to any discrepancies between the actual results and what you expect. So like if you go in and add an entity and then you pop back out and you're looking at the list view, you may say, wait a minute, the name was different than that. Or, I'm just making stuff up, but I'm just saying, you make sure that what you see after you save is what you actually see. So what I like to do is I go in and add an entity and save it and come back out. Then I like to go into that entity again and make sure everything's exactly like when I added it. Those kinds of things are important so that you get the expected results, or the actual results as you expected. Okay. Steps to reproduce, screenshots if possible, screen recordings even are nice. The browser or device being used. I know you probably didn't think this is that important, but browsers, common browsers, Edge is the Microsoft one that a lot of people use. Chrome is the Google one a lot of people use. And then Safari is the Apple one a lot of people use. And then also Firefox, if anybody uses that. We use that a lot in development, but you may not use that as much. But those four for sure are the main four that we would expect this to work in. So if you're in a browser, we would like to know what that is. Device. What I mean by that is, as you know, this application, or you might not know, but is a responsive application, right? So it is supposed to conform to the size of your window, okay, or the size of your screen, obviously too, because if your window is completely visible in your screen and you're on a tablet or an iPad, then it may operate a little bit differently, right? And so we want to know that. Also, if you're looking at a tablet or an iPad, you probably aren't using a mouse, you're using your fingertip. And if you do that, maybe we got something in there that's not going to exactly work. And we'll need to know that. Maybe it's a drop down menu. Right clicks are bad news. Maybe we got something on a right click we shouldn't have. So all those kinds of things. We want to make sure we continually make an accessible, and we're going to be doing screen for accessibility soon, and also a responsive and intuitive system. So that's important too. The browser and the device, if possible. And then of course that, like we said, expected outcome. I expected it to be this, but you know what? I got this. Okay. Any kind of screen prints or screen captures on air messages or anything like that are always great. Okay, the three categories. Do not worry about these three categories. We're just telling you kind of how you think about things when you report issues, because we will have to synthesize this and make sure that enhancements, issues that are really not bugs and enhancements go into a change request process, which gets scheduled. We're not saying we're not going to do them, and we're not going to say we're not going to do them, tomorrow or the next day, but we're just saying we got to make sure that we get a product out to you on our scheduled timeline. And if we start enhancing it too much, then the scope gets out of hand and we can't give you that MVP, that minimum viable product, that release one that takes care of the standard functionality. So that's all, but we want them reported. Okay. So bugs are when the system does not perform as expected. Okay. That's not just a bug, is not just an error message on a screen. It's not just I can't get to something. It's absolutely not performing according to the requirements. So when we did discovery and we built the requirements and we got them signed off, and then we built stories and developed it, if those stories and those requirements are one thing and the development and the system is working another way, then it's a bug. Okay. Because the system has to work according to the way everyone signed off on requirements. It's an issue if it's performing according to requirements, but the user feels that the requirement was just not captured correctly. So we might have a problem with requirements. Or now that you're getting into it and you understand it better on that feedback and that user interface, then you say, oh, this is not going to work. Case may be, wow, it's 15 clicks to do this. I didn't think that would be that way. Okay. Because every single detail of navigation and every single detail of screen design are not captured. Every single one of them are not captured in describing requirements. We try to do that. We try to do as best as we can, but it doesn't always work that way. So if you get into and we're not always looking at, we try, but we're not always looking at, hey, what's the time frame to do, if I have a bunch of these things, I have a bunch of case notes, or I have a bunch of these, am I able to do that, or do I have to go dig deep into some 3 or 4 or 5 screens deep, come out, then go back into the next, come out? Or maybe it's relationship building, do I have to click every activity and then come back out? There's a lot of different things that we may need to think about that you found that's an issue. Okay. Enhancement is truly that. It's like, wow, you know what? I didn't know you could do this, but this would be a lot better if you could even do that. Okay. So I didn't know you could do X, but since I see it now, wow, if we could add on just this one little piece, this would make this really awesome. Right. And we want to know those. Okay. Issues and enhancements will go into our change request log, and we'll work with the state to schedule those into either an upcoming release within our project, but we have to mitigate that scope change. Okay, so we'll make sure that we understand where that fits in the whole life cycle. Okay. All right. Best practices for effective UAT, think like an end user. Okay. You know, approach it like, okay, well, they don't realize, but I had this document in front of me over here, or I'm talking to this customer here, or, at this time. So think like you would do your job. Okay. Be specific and thorough. Can't even emphasize that enough. Make sure your feedback is out there and addresses the issue, and always provide context. Okay. I was, all the context around, maybe it's data context, maybe it's just the process before I got to this point, those kinds of things. Okay. All right. Is there any questions or anything before I jump into the next piece? Is there anything out here that I didn't hit? Okay, you got all that. That didn't work, somebody said, I think.
Yeah, we may
All
need
right,
to
we're
double
working.
check and make sure everyone has access to Teams. I'm not sure if they do.
All right, we need to do that. And then sometimes there's an issue. Well, there is an issue if you have Teams in your local area and it's on a different user. We got to make sure you switch over or whatever you need to do to make sure you get in Teams the way you need to get in Teams. But I think we'll work through this. We'll work through these issues here. Just make sure we're aware of them. Okay. All right. So this, I told you about this. This is our UAT. This document here is the first cycle document that you're going to have. And then I told you about the schedule. I think I got that right. No, I don't see the schedule. Hold on. Thought I had the schedule up. Let me go here. I'm just looking here. There's a schedule. Okay. So this September 11th through the 18th, or September 11th through the 17th at noon, I should say, is these 4 topics. Okay. Most of this, A is just getting this worked out. How do I get into these artifacts, and how do I get into the environment?
So
Then we'll have
with those 4 steps, A, B, C, and D, from September 11th to the 18th, you're going to give us access to go in there and do testing on these
Yes.
entities to put them in?
Yes, I'm going to show you that. I'm going to demonstrate to you in a second in the UAT environment exactly those steps. Okay.
Okay.
You bet. All right, you're right on. Okay, and then the cycle 2 will go in a little deeper into editing entities and adding entity locations, location details, those kinds of things. Contacts, selecting contacts, in other words, associating with multiple locations. We'll go into the sections of the location details view, entity functions, social services, relationships. We'll make sure you understand there's some name changes here a little bit from the old IWDS. Then on the 3rd week, 25th through the 2nd, we're going to go into this relationship stuff. Obviously relationships gets a little more difficult, so there's not a whole lot here that week in terms of different topics, but we want you to add and edit relationships. These are very similar, so you don't have to worry about that. But there's a 3-step process there, and there's quite a bit to do there. I'll be interested in getting feedback on that for sure. And then there's a testing page we have that has some components, I should say, some pieces that we want you to look at that are actually implanted or a subset of another page that you're going to get to later. But we got those developed early, and we want to make sure you see those too. Then October 2nd through the 9th, we're going to go into customer list view, application list view, add customer. I think Olivia's breaking this up too, also into a couple parts, because there's a lot to do with Duke Detect and all those kinds of things, and we want to make sure we get good feedback for that. Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's go in to this system. Okay. Now, unfortunately, let me sign out real quick. Okay, this is what you're going, well, uh-oh. That was not good. Let me see here. Okay. So the page I have, this first page I have already is, which is right here in this guide. Oh, shoot. A picture of, you might see this. I'm not sure if Sarah Taylor, Olivia, if you get into this, you see this or you see this. But you may see either one. Do not, if you see quick links here on this, do not worry about it. Just ignore it. Whatever you see on the home page. So when you get in, you'll get a home page. That's what the landing page is. This landing page really isn't developed yet. Don't worry about that. We're going to focus on this top menu. You're going to focus on this customers. Of course, not the first week, but that's going to be one area. And then the first week, entity management. So the pieces that we're going to have throughout the whole thing are going to be on entity management, this testing page, and then over here, this customers. Those are the only pieces that we're focusing on in release 1. So everything in release 1 you'll do will be this menu item, the entity management menu item, or the testing page. And week 1, the only thing you'll be into is entity management. Okay. Everybody get that? Now, I didn't emphasize this enough before. This is not, you do not have to log in to get into this. So right now, if you put in this link that we put in here, this UAT release link, that's the first one, access to UAT environment, that test apps, Illinois workNet.com idea, you would be able to get into this environment. Okay. So just be careful. Now, it doesn't really matter too much for entities, right? But if we get over to the customer side, it does matter. We want to make sure we're getting test data, not real live data there, because it's not a protected environment. Okay. It's that way because of 2 reasons. One is we want kind of to get through this first off this week, and maybe even this whole release, and then a while, because without that, because we want to get, there's all kinds of issues that can happen in all that security process too. Okay. So let's kind of, crawl before we walk before we run kind of concept. Okay. The second reason is the user management, development, roles, permissions, and all that has not been developed. We haven't discovered it all and developed requirements and developed it yet. We're just starting that process. We will have, because, and then the third issue is right now is this right here is hosted in an SIU environment, the system, and even test systems. We have 4 environments or 3 or 4 environments over at Do It. It will be hosted in the Do It environment later. When we get into that, we're getting into a different login process called Okta. Don't worry about the name, but we're getting into an integration between our application and the overall state of Illinois security system. So those are coming down the road. Don't worry about that. You should be able to get right into this. If it doesn't, you notice my name was there, it says sign in. You do not have to sign in. Okay. You do not have to sign in. All right. So this week, when you go to entity management, you get to what we call a landing page for entity management. And that landing page for entity management should look like this. It should come up. I put in here, I searched around into our production system, and I searched for just a few. I put in a few. I started a few entities. This AlphaWorks is not. That was the first test entity I put in. But after that, these are actually ones I found in your IWDS, and I put those in. These are entities, okay? And I did that just enough so we could get 2 things, so I could show you this operation, and you could actually, when you come in, you actually see this. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, I see different LWIAs entities. That's correct. We do not have entity associations yet. with these, LWIA associations yet with these entities. Don't worry about that. Okay. That will come. So this particular part of the filter is not working yet. Okay. I'm going to try to tell you things that aren't working. It's okay if you forget things that aren't working and you put a problem in there. That's okay. But I'm going to tell you that part is not there. Obviously, the roles and security is not there, and any kind of security around LWIA is not there. Okay. The name lookup on this is there. The entity type, these are the entity types. They're there. That's connected. Entity functions, and this is an example of. My screen wasn't big enough, so when I went to entity functions, by the way, you couldn't see all those, but you can select entity functions. So I went to everything over here is filtering this list. Right now, that's the entire list. It's like 10, but as you put them in, as you test and you do the add entity piece and you come back to here, you'll be able to use these filters according to the characteristics that you put in on an entity. Okay. Now that works. Social services. This is the older in the IWDS. This was called, I believe, human services. I believe. Okay. That's now called social services. It's a list that's being synced up to Service Finder and some things like that. But these are social services, and these fund types is given to you in a hierarchy. So we're talking about WIOA. You can select these fund types all at once, or you can just select which ones. Like if I wanted to see all my providers that have youth services or whatever. Now, as you know, these are, if you don't know, that's okay. These are connected through relationships. You would have to have a relationship built for a location of an entity, right? In order for you to filter this on those types of those fund types, okay? Programs, fund types, okay? Now, that leads me to one more. Before I go there, anything you put into this, okay, we haven't done this real time, and the reason when I'm saying real time, we don't start filtering the minute you change one of these fields. We don't filter that, and the reason is this: you may want 3 or 4 of these filters before you do a search, and the overload of just continually searching in the system prior and giving you stuff prior to what you want. You could put in one thing, that's okay. Like I could put in, and you notice it didn't do anything, but I can go down here and I hit the search button and it put in, it brought that back. Now it could be name. If I go in here, now if I want to reset, I just hit that reset button and everything. You're only going to get one page back, but it's all the pages that you would get back will be filtered by whatever your filter is. Okay. But we're only bringing one page back at a time. Now, in this particular setting, we're defaulting this to 50 elements. Okay. So if I put this at 5, then you can see that I'm only going to get 5 back. The rest of them are in the pages, right? Down here, this is pagination. We call this pagination. It tells you there are 11 of 12 of the 12 entries. You have pages here. You can jump directly to a page if you want. And this changes, like I showed you, the number of elements per page. Okay.
Robert,
All right, so
you
that's
have your hand
pagination.
raised.
Go ahead.
Let me unmute this. I noticed you did the search, right? But can you also search by fiend number? Because we want to make sure we don't have duplication of the fiend number. So when you did the search, how do you search by fiend number? And also I noticed you said something about the entity function. I know in IW, yeah, I don't see training. And I know that was a big thing. If we didn't have
It's here.
training,
It's here. You just
oh,
got
it
to
is there.
scroll this list.
Oh,
You
okay.
have to scroll the list. Yeah, you bet.
Okay.
And entity
Okay.
functions used to be
Business
something else.
business function. It used to have been business.
Yes. Now those are called just entity functions. Okay.
Good. I
So
like that.
And business services is one of those things in there, but they're all these ones. And
Okay.
these are this list is a modified a little bit. The state modified that list a little bit, but it's
That's
pretty
better.
familiar. It's pretty similar. Okay.
I was wondering
Okay.
if
Let
the
me go back
training
to your FEIN question. I don't believe that's your first. I'm going to give you an assignment. I think that's going to be your first one to report because I do not think FEI, but I'm going to show you something else you can get to. So if we want to add a different column to this, okay, we do it over here with this little drop down. You probably didn't see me hit it, but right here, there are more columns that we can add. And one of them is identification, which is either FEIN or SSN. But for the most part, a business, an entity is an FEIN. But if you click this, then you will see the identification numbers. Now, which is FEIN in most of these, if you see it this format. Now, I don't think, though, that we are doing that. That's a great catch because I don't think we are spanning this over to the FEIN. We are not. So there we go. Great, a great, because we talked about this before you did, Robert. I apologize. I forgot about that, but we probably need to get that because you guys, I guess some people know the FEIN and they can just search for it.
Right, because sometimes, company will submit, various location, and sometimes they might have a location with a FIN number associated with that location or whatever, or they change the company name. And it's just good to be able to search to make sure there's no
Yep.
duplication of FIN number in the system.
Yep. Now, when we go to add, I'm going to show you this. Like if we go to add an entity, the first thing we're forcing everybody to do is search. Okay. In that screen, I'll show you here. You have the ability to put in an FEIN. So you can put the FEIN right in there, do a search. It comes right back if it's found, not found. In fact, I will copy one of these so we can show you that in a minute. Okay. And then you'll find it that way before you add one that's a duplicate. It won't let you, you're trying to find those duplicates. So I'll show you that in a second, but it might be nice to have it out here too. Okay. So a couple more things here. Like I showed you real quick, you can actually select and deselect any of these. Like if I wanted entity type in there. Now, obviously we got screen, you're going to have screen space considerations. You can put this over if you need to. If you're not filtering, and you can get more. This up here, I think I told you this before, these sort by that. It also has a secondary sort. So if let me take off business sense. Okay, so if I wanted to sort by this adult education, probably is going to be first. So if I sort by this, it sorts by this. So you see these three in community college, okay? It'll sort by this, but every sort you do that's not the name source sort, the secondary sort will be name. So that way you're not like, for instance, if I look at community colleges and then these aren't in a different order, so it's hard to find them. So we put a secondary sort on name always, and the first sort is on whatever column you're in. I don't know why you'd sort by that. You might sort by this, and so that's the concept. So if these are all different, so that won't show anything. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you that that's how that's going up. Favorites, that's when you mark favorites, and you can set entities as favorites. When you go to that tab, it'll show you your list of favorites. So if you're working with a dozen or 2 dozen all the time, you might set those as favorites. That is not implemented yet because in order to implement that, we have to implement the user login and the user accounts because we have to associate those favorites to be your favorites, right? So that's not available yet. It's a real simple thing. You'll see a switch in the entity edit. Eventually you'll see a switch that says, I want to mark this as my favorite. And if you do that, then you will get it into your favorites tab. Don't worry about that right now. That's not available. Okay. Okay. Let's go on. So this page and all its, and in this page, we will show you right here, we actually kind of describe those pieces. And those are just bare, it's just a sentence or two, but it describes those pieces that I'm talking about, because that page is pretty complex. It has a lot going on. And you're going to want to know again, well, I didn't know I could do all that. Okay. The last thing, see, I forgot one. It's number 15 here is the export. Let me show you that. Okay. So the export, when you hit that, you can export the current page, which is this page, or you can export all the data you have. Now, this is from the filter, right? So if I've got this filtered, I've got a whole set of data. So if I filtered this to, here, let me filter this community colleges. I search. Okay, obviously there's going to be a lot more, but if there were more than one page, then if you hit the export all data, it would export all the pages, even though you don't see the pages. You just see the first one or whatever page you're on. It'll still export on. If you say, oh, I just want the first page of this, then you can export that first page. What does it do? It puts it into a CSV formatted file and downloads it to your downloads folder. Okay. So then you can open that in Excel and look at it and manipulate it and do whatever you want with it. So that allows you to export what you're seeing if you're going to send it or whatever you're going to do. And that's what that's for. Okay. So I just wanted to tell you that. All right. So this page here is one of the things we want you to use and understand, and for sure provide us with any issues. The second piece was add entity. Okay. Now, when we go to add entity, this is that part where if I knew that, well, I'm sorry, we should default to that too. If I knew that, okay, then I could search for that and it would show, oh, we already have that, right? So, because this is our duplicate entity check prior to adding an entity. Okay, you can go by name, partial name, address, partial address, city. You can enter any of these attributes you want on entities / entity locations, right? Because we're dealing with two things here. And you can search and then it will try to find that. If you don't want that, for example, and we want to go with community, okay, and we search, then it's given everything that has community in the name. If you go with Dan, they gave Danville. If you go with Lincoln, it found Lincoln land. Okay, so obviously, if I go here and hit Shep, it found Shepherd. Okay, so whatever, you can go zip code also, whatever you need to do. This is designed so that it kind of forces you to look before you go ahead and add an entity and then find out later that entity's already in there. Okay. All right. I'm going to say here, I didn't find it, so I'm going to add one. And just for the purposes of speed, I'm going to add makeup stuff as I go. But so one other thing, and I want to say right off the bat, is this little pill here, that's called a pill. It says dev. You might not be able to, hopefully you can see it, but eventually this will be our logo whenever that gets branded, this system gets branded. And this right here is going to say UAT. We have that, I think we have that in development right now. It tells you what environment. Why is that important? In the future, when we ask you to go test something or look at something, we're going to want you in that UAT environment, and we don't want you to be in the production environment, right? So down the road, way down the road, when we have a production system up and we have a test system up, user acceptance test system up, we're going to want to make sure that when you look at something and test it and give us feedback, that you're in the UAT environment. Okay. Right now that says dev. You'll notice in the document, the guide, that shows as UAT, but that will be there probably next week after our next sprint. Okay. All right, so we're in here and we're getting ready to add. As you probably guessed, these little asterisks that are red, those are required fields, okay? So, and when we add an entity, okay, a little different than today, you add an entity and then you say, okay, add location. We know that you need at least one main location for any entity. It doesn't make sense not to have it. So we go ahead and bring in the location name, address, so that you actually add a location when you add the first entity. Okay, so I'm going to put, just for the heck of it, I'm just going to make something up here. And I'm going to do an FEIN, and I'm going to do junk. I'm going to do another 00. Whoops, I'm sorry, didn't finish that. Okay, I'm going to say this is, I'm just going to say it's association for fun. Make that up. Okay, so here's that button I told you about. Don't worry about it right now, but you will be able to add a favorites, that to your favorites if you want it to favorites. And you'll be able to add to your favorites for a while if you want, and then you want to go back in and switch that button off. You can take it away and say, I don't want my favorites anymore. That's not now, that's not available yet. All right. Each location, as you know, has a name. I noticed some of these locations, a lot of these locations, they put in the same name every time. I'm not exactly sure why. It seems like you ought to put something to identify that. But if I had maybe, I would put in, say, Springfield. Something to identify that location, but maybe a county name. I've seen that sometimes too. Okay. And I'm just going to put 100. I don't even know if there's such a thing. Main Street. In here, you can put like a suite if you want. You can put whatever, if you have a second line address, you can put that in there. Now I'm tabbing through this. Some people use a mouse, right? And I like to not pick up my mouse if I don't have to. But this is a little tricky here, this state drop down. If I type in AL, you'll see it drops down to it. I can hit tab, it picks it up. I hit tab again, I'm at the zip code. Or obviously you could go in here and scroll this all the way down to Illinois if Illinois is it. And then I'm just going to put 4. Okay. You can have, optionally, you can have a 4-digit zip code on the end, or 4-digit extension on the end of your zip code. I'm not going to do that for now. County, if it's in Illinois, then you'll have the counties that are in Illinois. I know this Sangamon. I just did a SA real quick. Okay. If I didn't do that, if I just did R, it would go to the first R. If I didn't do anything, obviously it would be right here at Adams probably. Yeah. And then we would just scroll down all the way to Sangamon. But as you can see, I do not like using my mouse and doing an extra keystroke. So that's why I did that. I'm going to put in 555, 2345. Now here, if you keep going, you can actually put in an extension and it recognizes those extra numbers as an extension. So anything, phone number, US phone number, just starts with this area code, a 3-digit prefix, and then a 4-digit number. You can actually put in an extension if you want. You do not have to. You can just get out of it. Okay. You can put in fax and TTD or TDY the same way. Okay. That's my first. Now you'll notice there's a lot of stuff on location that I don't have here. We're just trying to get that first location in for that edit. So that is the second piece of this, add entity. I think it's actually a third piece, and then once you add entity, okay, it goes directly to the entity details view is what we call this. So you'll see at the top. So now I added the entity, so it goes back to that detailed view. Okay, there's a lot. This is our last piece here. Beta Works Inc. is the entity that I added up. Its name's up here. It's also right here. Okay. What we call general information is all here, doing business as, the FBIN, the entity type, the website, the business sense. I didn't put it in there, unemployment insurance. So these 3 fields only are available when you select an employer. They're not available. They don't need to be put in when you do not have an employer. And we probably should hide them if we don't have an employer. Okay, there's 2 more sections on the entity details view. Okay, these 2 sections are the locations section, okay, and the contact section, okay. Locations is all the locations I have on this entity. I've got a Springfield one. In the second week, we're going to get into location details, adding another location, and location edit. We're not going to get into that this week. Keep it simple, okay. The other one is contacts. Contacts are added at a location level. However, when you're in that location and you want to select and associate multiple contacts from other locations to this locations that are within that entity, you can do that too. So if I have somebody that covers 3 locations, they're the contact for 3 locations, you only have to put them in once and you can associate them to all 3 locations. That happens in location edit and contact add and contact association stuff. Okay. So once you do that, you're going to see all contacts. So the interesting thing is when you'll see here this locations here, and you're like, wait, that don't make sense. Wait, we're at the entity level and here's your locations. And then down here will be all the contacts for all the locations. Now you'll be able to sort that by location, first name or last name. And in here, you'll have an email right in front of you and a phone number. So you don't even have to dig in to a location, then into the contact view and all that to find information how to get to this place and this person. Okay. So you'll see this hours of operation pop up once that's set. Right now it's not been set, but that's how you can see that. You'll see a phone number here for that location too. So in entity view, this is entity view, you'll be able to see all of this. Obviously, this will continue down when we get more. And then this will have a set size, and that looks like 10, but it's going to be set to where you might have to scroll even to get to 10. And then you can page also. So if you've got, 20 locations, it would be 2 pages and you'd have to scroll. But you could also set that for 20 and you would see them all in that scroll. So that works the same wherever you see this throughout this system. We call this a grid or a list, whatever. You'll see that pagination at the bottom of that list, and that works the same wherever you are. Okay. Same with contacts. If you have 30, 40 contacts, you would see pages here according to however many you want on a page, but you'll still have some scrolling there too, because obviously this is going to be a long page and we want to make sure we don't have too much scrolling. All right. Here is later on where we do hit this button, you won't even have to edit. And then here is where we're going to go into edit. Those are not due to look at this time. The only thing you're looking at is this page. And when you'll notice on most of our pages, when we're deeper into the system, deeper meaning we went down, think about it as going down into something else, you'll see a back button. And that'll take you, and it'll usually tell you where it's taking me back to, what's taking me back to the entity list. Okay. And if I look right there is the one I added. And how do I get that to see that details page? I just click on that and I get back to that details page. All right. So this right here, and all the features on this page, there's quite a few. Add entity, which is that page I just saw, which includes the duplicate check and then the add entity. And then being able to change all these, export, and then going into one of these and seeing the detail to make sure it's okay. That's what we want to look at for the next 4 days, 4.5 days. Questions? I know there's got to be some questions.
Hi, this is Christy. You're right. I have a question.
No problem.
So the links that you guys gave us, are those like, are you giving us like step-by-step instructions of what you want us to specifically enter, or we're just like kind of making it up?
Okay, you can you can, we kind of want you to make it up, but you,
Mhm,
on this entity stuff, what I
Mhm.
did was, here's what I did. I put this up and then I went over to IWDS if you have access, or maybe your case may be Career Connect. I just went over there and did an entity search and started and found one that was real easy for me to enter decent data, right? Like good data, right?
Okay,
So because that doesn't hurt anything here. We're not, that's pretty open book here on there's no PII or whatever around entities, so providers and that. So just go add your favorite provider or whatever, and use that. That's easier sometimes than doing what I just did where I made up stuff. You can make up stuff all you want. You can even put your name as an entity. That's okay, but we're not
Mhm.
really supplying you with data. You can get that. I would suggest you get that out of your system today because it's real easy to get. I
And
had both screens up and I
Mhm.
literally entered 10 of these within 15 minutes.
Okay, and do
So
you want us to enter like in our case, some cases, it would be like an agency that's offering WIOA services, and then we also have like a training provider. Do
yep.
you want us to do both types, or does it
Yeah,
matter?
you can do anything,
Okay,
any kind you want. Yep,
okay,
absolutely.
thank
Anything
you.
that's in IWDS, and obviously if it's in Career Connect, if you're in Career Connect, um, anything that's in there that's in a WIOA program, for now I would consider putting it in there and trying it. Okay. Now it's not much. You're going to say, "Wow, I want to add the location or I want to add context." I realize that, but we don't want to overload anybody, right? We want to really stay focused on just small bites so that we can get through this pretty fast. Okay.
Will the entity also, will you have proprietary school as a entity type as well? I didn't notice that in your drop down.
We have, here's our drop down. Adult Education Association, Community College, community-based organization, employer, faith-based organization, foundation, government entity, hospitality, nursing, IETC, JATC, labor
Yeah,
union,
there we go.
OEA office, proprietary school. Yep.
Yes, okay.
Public secondary school, public private university or college, registered apprenticeship. Don't worry about testing there. That shouldn't be there. And then voc tech. So those are the ones that testing shouldn't be there.
Well, we have
Uh,
definition for each one as far as if we put entering the entity to associate with the right community college, community based.
I have what we call information bubble text. In other words, we have that. We have not got that integrated into the system yet, but you will have that sooner or later. You'll have ability to hit a little eye. I'm not sure how we're going to do it
Right, that would be
on these
helpful.
drop downs because, like, when I go over here, and I do this, I'm not exactly sure yet. I got to ask the folks how we do that, but we may have to have an eye here that pulls up a info bubble that shows you an explanation of each of these types because I have those. They've been given to me, and I think that's probably what we'll do. We'll have a little eye there, and you'll hit that, and it'll bring up an info bubble. What we call them info bubbles or whatever. That is an information window that shows you the description of each one of those types. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause old timer like me and Rory, we would know the difference, but new people coming in may not know what a community college, what a faith based,
Yep.
some of the stuff that
Yep.
you have there.
Absolutely. And you're going to see those. In fact, Olivia has those over in the customer side already. And you're going to see those start popping up. You'll see a little eye. Okay. And let me cancel this real quick. You'll see a little eye when you hover it or touch on it or whatever, then it will provide you with information. It kind of works like this. You see this eye here, and it'll give you information, but usually it's bigger than that. It's not that small. Okay. Other questions? So please read the guide. If you can't get to this, make sure we know so we can make sure we understand how we got to get you in to read the guide and the schedule and then get into the UAT environment. If you have any problems, contact any of us. and we will help you through that process. Okay. We really appreciate you getting into this. We're pretty excited about getting this out in front of you. We're going to just do week after week after week. We're going to touch on this. We're not going to consume our whole thing every time, but we will be touching on what we just saw and what we're going to see in the next, we're going to do in the next week. Okay. All right. Anyone, Taylor, Olivia, Lynette, you have any other thing we want to go over today? Sarah,
Nope, I'm good.
everybody good?
Everyone's good.
All right. Thanks everyone so much for getting in today and listening to this and helping us out. We appreciate it.
And also, you're going to send us the link so we can have access to it, because I know right now I wasn't able to get into it.
Yep. We'll
Yeah.
send you we'll reply here and send you go ahead, whoever that was.
So after our session, we'll send an email with a link to all the resources and the recording, and then we'll also post them on our transition webpage where we keep things updated with discovery stuff. We'll post those UATs there too, so you can get to them from either the email or the transition website as well.
Okay. And also, this test environment, you want us to go in there and work on it. Is that link also going to be there for us to go into and do our testing as required?
Yeah. Yes. This link
Okay.
here that I'm
Yeah,
in. Yes.
Robert, I sent everybody access to all of the documents and the test site, so you should have that. If you have any issues, just respond and let me know and we'll figure it out.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, just
Sarah.
make sure, I can't stress enough, you're not bothering us. Make sure if you can't get into something, you don't say, don't blow it off. Just please get back to us. We'll get right to you and we'll get that fixed up. And once you get into this once and all this stuff, you'll never have a problem getting into it again. So, all right. Thanks. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for your time. And we'll see you next week.